Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Down Unders and a massive week of footy to talk about. And obviously to start it off with the State of Origin game number 3. The decider is tonight. And again, as always on a Wednesday, we bring my brother Brody, New South Wales fan, Doggies alumni. Brother, how you feeling about tonight? Obviously jitters on both sides, but you got to be a little bit confident there being in Sydney.
Yeah, my luck on the last couple of weeks of footy, man, not so good. So I'm not feeling too confident. And I know that Maroon's going to be fired up with obviously the sad news of Cam Munster's dad. So a little bit nervous. Yeah. But I'm just hoping for a good game.
And we may as well, before we get through all the chat and all that too, guys, obviously from me and Brody, and I'm guessing just from the general rugby league community, obviously all our heart goes out to the Munster family due to all this time. You know, it's definitely a sad occurrence to happen in his life, and I'm sure the NRL community is getting around Cam Munster, and I think everyone will be cheering him on to have a great game tonight, whatever side of the fence you're on. Obviously, Blues fans don't want him to obviously win overall, but they still want him to perform to the highest of level and to obviously, you know, for him to be okay personally. So, guys, massive news to get through. So obviously we'll be touching on the State of Origin Game 3 preview. We're going to give you our thoughts, maybe some try scorers, maybe give you a score prediction, stuff like that. Then we'll be talking about some of the news of the week. Desi Hasler set to retire at the end of the season, so we'll definitely touch on that very quickly as well. NRLW round 1, we want to get our thoughts, whether, you know, that changes our thought process on teams that could win the competition and that, however much we've seen. Go for our Team of the Week segments, weekend preview, finish with some Supercoach chat. So, if you're here for Supercoach, guys, hold your questions till the end of the show. But we appreciate all you guys jumping in. As always, Tahi, what's happening? Like, share, comment, and subscribe to help support the show. Thank you so much, Tahi. And again, guys, as I said last week, there is a top fans feature. I think the more you comment, the higher you get as a top fan. Also with super chats, all that sort of stuff. I think that's the way it works. But shout out to all the viewers right now. 10 concurrent viewers currently just jumped in straight away. Great sight to see there. GT. Let's go, Queensland. And Hans, hello. What's happening? All right, brother. While we're at it, we may as well touch on, guys, if you wanted to see our squad reactions, maybe that happened last week, so that was our first sort of thoughts on when the squads first came out. But a week's been, a week's happened. There's a lot of water that's wet under the bridge, and like a lot of comments are made on, Brian Toto, whether he can make it to the Blues game in this one, Payne Haas, stuff like that. But it's looking like everyone's ready to go. How are you feeling? Is there any changes to your thought process coming into this game, or is everything lock and loaded, ready to go for you guys to win this decider?
I'm not surprised by that. It's just typical pre-game Origin antics of this player's injured, this player's out, yada, 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 carrying this, and it never falls through. We've seen the Harry Grant sick, was it last week as well? Like the typical flu going around, as it always does. So, feeling good. Feeling very confident. Hopefully Cleary's 100% good to go on that quad, and Luai's past his illness as well from the week before. I'm just really hoping that the weather's good and the boys just find their momentum straight off the bat, and just really stay disciplined tonight. And I hope that we really get a good game. I hope Queensland bring it just as much as New South Wales do. And I want to be on the edge of my seat for 80 minutes. I really do. I know that's not what you really want. You want to be coasty as your team wins and comfortably wins, but that's not what Origin is. I want a nail biter, and I really want to crack a game here.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think we could both agree, with the whole talk around State of Origin and stuff like that with the refereeing. Well, hopefully the referee stays out of the action in this one, allows the teams to sort it out in that football field. So there's no excuses at the end of the game, whether wins or losses. Whoever comes out victorious in this one comes out victorious. And I think there's a lot of things that do sway the way of the Blues' favor. We'll definitely touch on that just quickly, while we touch on both these sides. But we'll run through again, guys. The team lists have not been changed. So Dylan Edwards, Brian Toto, Stephen Crichton, Latrell Mitchell still stay out there with Zach Lomax out back. Luai, Cleary is 6 and 7 right now. Max King and Payne Haas still up front with Reece Robson, Liam Martin, Angus Crichton, and Isaiah Yeo in that 13 jersey. Interchanges Connor Watson, Spencer Leniu, Hudson Young, and Stefano Utikimanu. In reserves, we've got Jacob Carraz and Lindsay Smith. So they've done the first cut-off. So there are only 2 sitting in the reserves at the moment. And obviously that will cut off an hour before game time to see, if there's any changes to the team going into the With the lineup that we see here, again, I feel like this is somewhat of a silly question because we haven't seen too many game day changes of starting lineups and that. But do you see any game time changes or anything like that before the game come into this one?
Not if there's if there's no injuries, then no, I don't see a change in this one.
No. I think it's going to run pretty stock standard. There is a photo going around. Me and Brody just discussed this before going on air. Payne Haas is walking around with looks like a little bit of a heat pack sort of thing attached to Payne Haas at the moment. So it does look like he is still carrying this back injury, but we've seen Payne Haas, he's apparently dealing with this injury for a long period of time now. So I think he'll get through this game and still produce what Payne Haas usually produces. So
yes. Payne Haas at the end of the day, bro, he's been carrying an injury since the start of Origin. And probably longer. He's just one of those guys that can just play through it. Once he's out there and warm, good to go, he's going to get through the 80.
So out of all those names that I named out, obviously on your team list here, bro, who do you reckon is going to be your major impactors in this game? I can really see the two big storylines that are circling around this State of Origin and whichever team sort of wins this game. But who are you circling that's going to have probably the biggest impact for the Blues against the Maroons, and probably give us to why? What are you seeing in the Maroons that you think this player can really impact this game?
Yeah, I think Nathan Cleary really needs to grab this game by the horns like he did in that last game we've seen him play, Doggies versus Panthers, and just really stamp his mark on the game and be the dominant half in the game. He has the opportunity to be the best half in the league, and he potentially is, but in Origin is the time you need to prove that, and Cleary needs to do that with his kicking game tonight, and he needs that quad to be right. If he can really implement New South Wales' game plan by just completing and getting ball downfield and building that pressure that the Panthers do so well. If he can bring that to Origin, it'll take the Blues a long way to winning this game tonight. And then it's just up to the rest of the boys to be disciplined and play off the back of it. So a couple of key areas that I think the Blues will attack, is I think they're going to go after Shibasaki early with Stephen Crichton. Yep. I think they're going to try and expose him pretty early. But also I think they're going to go back to Tommy Dearden and really try and expose him with his pull back defense more so than Cherry Evans in your face defense that we've seen in Queensland before. So I think Dearden's going to be in for a big night again. And I think you'll see Toto come up with another try, if not two. But I also think that right edge of Queensland with Shibasaki will be tested out. I think he might be able to handle the test. I really think he's pretty good defensively, but time will tell. But I think they're the two areas that New South Wales is going to target. I think you'll see Angus Crichton have a really big game at getting tackled by Tommy Dearden, because that's where they're going to target all night long. And for me, if I was in the Blues, I would be really trying to go after Harry Grant, because if you can get Harry Grant 30, 40 tackles into him in that first half, he's going to be so tired, man, in that second half. He's not going to offer much attack out of dummy half. You got Kurt Mann on the bench that can do a job at hooker. But that's obviously not what Queensland want to lean to, because he didn't play hooker at all in that game too. And Harry had to go 80. So I'd really like to see the Blues test out Harry Grant and get some tackles under his belt and try and force the hand a little bit to make Kurt Mann play a bit of hooker there for a 10, 15-minute period due to Harry being gassed. And I think that will take a lot of threat away from around the ruck. And that's not to say that Kurt Mann's not a good player, but it's just, that not preferred position could really upset Queensland's attack, Queensland's flow there. So that's where I'd be targeting. If I was New South Wales, that's where I think they should go after. And if they do this, I think there's a chance to get a few tries there and definitely be able to ice this game.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really, really good points. Like, I want to touch on that Harry Grant point that you bring up. It's been, before this Origin series, there's a lot talking about, who's going to be our hooker rotational sort of piece. Like, they was talking about if Ben Hunt was able to go again, if we're going to choose that way, we're going to choose Tom Dearden, which we did do in that first game. Now we seem to go down the route of a Kurt Mann that, as you pointed out before, Kurt Mann's predominantly loves to play through the middle as like that 13, that middle role coming on, brings a lot of energy for the middle, quick ruck speed, stuff like that. Not so much as a hooker. Harry Grant's best facet of his game is he can wheel and deal and really, play the game at a so place, but his best part and his best asset of his game is his athleticism and his speed. Defensively, you can make him work really hard. We saw how many tackles he made in game 2, and especially in game 1, the amount of work he gets through as well. And that really does come down to Cleary as well. And, playing in that very Panthers mindset, turning your edge back rollers back attacking between the middle, make Harry Grant really work hard, you know, from working A, B market, playing your markers, stuff like that. So, you know, that's a really great point to later on, you know, in the game, you know, Harry not to have that extra spice, that extra spark out of dummy half to really hurt you, because there is moments where, you know, if the Maroons were to find any sort of ruck speed, which we have been dealing with in this one, where we haven't found too much ruck speed in State of Origin in this series in general, you know, Harry Grant getting out of dummy half and just having so many different options, it is definitely a point that can hurt for New South Wales. And I think, you know, a key member for that, as you touched on, you know, Nathan Cleary, I think he can be a very good steerer of the ship in this sort of sense of just turning his edge back rollers underneath, making those middles work extra hard, and in course, making Harry Grant work extra hard. So you don't get that attacking upside for the Maroons if they were to find any sort of ascendancy from the middle. Because as soon as we're going to find a little bit of ruck speed in the middle, we got players like Tom Did and Cam Munster, run first sort of players. As soon as we find, like, you know, any second phase, you bring the hammer into the game, and the way you negate that, you take Harry Grant out of the lineup. So that's a really great first thought that you had there with Nathan Cleary and how he can really impact the game. Within touching that as well, looking at the forward pack that you got going on there, one like incredible forward pack. You were really critical, obviously, in game 2 of the bench interchange of Laurie Daly. Do you expect, obviously, he learnt the lesson from game 2 and he's going to run that at its course? And how do you kind of want to see that play out, if you want to just speak on that again while we go into game 3?
Yeah, I think Barnett and Max King were used perfectly in game 1. Yep. And I think they need to use Max King and Stefano the exact same way. I think you play 20-20 in the first half and 20-20 in the second half. I think that's the way to go with those two guys. I think Payne plays 30-25, and then you bring Spencer on for a good 15 there before half, and 5-10 after halftime. I think Isaiah Yeo needs to play the first 40. I don't know what really went wrong there for him to come off in that first 40 last game. And if you're trying to find him a spell, it needs to be when Payne Haas and Max King come back on for their second stint, and you potentially find a 10-15 minute period there for Yowie to have a break. I don't think New South Wales should allow Spencer, Hudson, and Stefano on the field at the same time again. And if I was Queensland, I'd be smart and potentially maybe start Kurt Mann for 15 minutes and then bring Harry Grant on. You know, you're not going to get too much ruck speed at the start of the game. It's more so just a feeling out process. You got to be good with your tackles. I think Queensland could take a lot out of it by starting Kurt Mann, just dishing early ball out of dummy half for the first 10-15, and then bringing in Harry Grant to find that lazy defender after about 15 minutes. But that's the way I think New South Wales should use their rotations. But I definitely think Daly, well, I don't know about Daly, but I know Bellamy would learn to use his rotations a lot better in game 3 than he did in game 2.
Yeah, 100%. And within touching that, we may as well jump over to the Maroon squad, top to bottom. Not too many changes again. As I said, a lot of these changes won't happen until right before the game, an hour before the game here. But Hamiso, Tabuai, Fido up at the fullback for the Maroons, Xavier Coates, Robert Toya, Shibasaki, and Valentine Holmes in the back line for the Queensland Maroons. Moving to the halves, Cam Munster, Tommy Dearden. Up front, Josh PAPALI'I, Harry Grant, and Tino Fa'asul Mala'awi. Moving to the edge back rows, Ruben Cotter, Kurt Capewell, and Trent Liero in that 13 jersey. Moving to your interchange, Kurt Mann, Lizzie Collins, Paddy Carrigan, Jeremiah Nanai. 18th man is now Reece Walsh at the moment, and Jermaine Hopgood is also that late inclusion there, no 19th man, if he was a late inclusion into this game. Just touching on your thoughts there of where Billy Slater, if he was to start the game with a Kurt Mann type, I want to throw to you another sort of option in that sort of sense. You know, carrying someone like a Jeremiah Nanai on the bench, you know, there's a lot of talk whether that did work or didn't work in game number 2, right? I think a lot of what happened in game number 2 probably, you know, glossed over maybe those changes and whether they did have the full impact is what we kind of hope for as a Queensland Maroons fan. But is there maybe even a chance of playing Ruben Cotter as a hooker? He's had done that in the past. Jeremiah Nanai starting on the edge and keeping Kurt Mann as just that middle forward type of impact role in that sort of sense. Could you see that even working for the Queensland Maroons if they want to go down that track?
Yeah, I could for sure. Yeah, I think that could be another move. Is Cotter start there at hooker just to solely be mostly defense, and then move to an edge. I do like that. I'm loving the Paddy Carrigan shout on the bench more so now that PAPALI'I is the one starting and not Mo Fodawaker. I think that strengthens you guys up so much. But yeah, I could see definitely Cotter starting. Only problem is Cotter plays 80, and then you're going to move him to an edge for Grant to come on and Nanai to the bench. So that's the only downside to that move.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces to this sort of mold, and as you touched on, probably the easiest 1-2 punch sort of move is just have Kurt Mann starting, getting him through just the early work there. All he has to do is just get into ruck, dish it off to your front rowers. State of Origin is just well known, that early, 10 to 15 minutes of filling out process. It's really where teams find out where they sit in the contest, who wins the ruck in that moment, and by the time that everything sort of loosens up a little bit, just spark on a little bit of Harry Grant, to kind of juice it up. But touching on those Maroon squad that we just touched, bro, is there names on this paper that you're looking at and going, all right, they're in for a big game? I know, we just quickly touched on Cam Munster. I think he's the one big storyline here, obviously coming into this game. But, you can touch on Cam, but is there anyone else out there too that you're just looking at that you're like, all right, they can really break open this game and maybe haven't had the greatest series right now, but have the ability to change that all around with one massive game?
I think it's Harry Grant, man. I really do. I'm worried what he can do to us in the ruck, especially if he's fresh enough to do so once we see Spencer, once we see Stefano come on. Harry Grant now plays with Stefano at Clubland, so he would know all his little tells and when he's being lazy around the ruck, which he is guilty for. So Harry Grant will expose those, and I'm worried that he's got a good enough pack now to have that threat as well. If he takes someone like PAPALI'I or Tino to the line or both to the line, it's going to create holes left, right, and center for him if the Blues defense isn't tight. So I'm really worried about the Grant Munster combination. I really am.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because touching on game one, Harry Grant, didn't have his best game. Game two had a slightly better game. He had some opportunities where he really, I think that beautiful try assist for Cam Munster to push that one out a little bit further there, working off Stefano in the marker work there and really using him to his advantage. But Harry probably didn't have his big, the game that we all expect from Harry Grant in Origin. And it just feels like that's waiting to happen. And I think that was the one thing with this Maroon side is, game two, we got the win. Wasn't the greatest sort of outlook, especially when you look at that second half. Like, that second half was heavily dominated by the New South Wales Blues running home with the contest and really almost pinching it from us if it wasn't, for a couple of things not going your way. But now we got the opportunity just to have that one big effort, like that one big game. And, you name those big names on paper, Harry Grant, Cam Munster, names like that are willing to step up on the big stage and really pinch it in a way for the Blues in what's been, you could argue the Blues have been the more dominant side through both these games for a majority of the areas. For the Maroons to do this would be massive. Cam Munster, obviously, everyone knows everything going on with his father and that, so I don't really want to dive too much and be like, he's going to have an incredible game. I don't want to put all out on him, but the areas that you're probably going to see Cam Munster in tonight, that's another obviously thought in your head. If there's anything more to get him up for this game, not only the captaincy and stuff, but it is obviously things going on in his personal life, right?
Yeah, it's just when he puts that Queensland jersey on, he's always a threat. And you could tell straight away if he's in the mood or not, because his first touch of the ball will normally be a run. So I'm hoping that the boys go after him and really put it on him straight off the bat and don't take it too lightly on him just because of the news, because if he gets into that mood, Munster, everything just starts to turn to gold, which he touches. I just want to quickly get to the chat. I don't get shit for wearing a Blues jersey because we won game 3, Jazzy. I seen that question there earlier, brother. We won game 3, so I didn't cop too much shit at Suncorp at all last year.
No, he didn't.
GT. Sorry, brother, but the Hammer already used up his 4 tries for Redcliffe last week, mate. So he won't be scoring again, mate. It's not how it works. And anything else?
Got Tarns here. Yeah, we got Tarns here. Do you like Hammer at fullback, Ash, or do you prefer him at centre, or doesn't it bother you? For me, personally, Brody knows this as well. I prefer Hammer at centre. I think, especially on the big stage, I think playing NRL football, I don't think there's the elite talent is there, but not to the highest potential of Origin. I don't think he can get found out as much in first grade due to his athletic ability and the level he can get himself to at a flick of the switch. In Origin, I think center suits him so well because the game kind of just comes to him. Like he doesn't have to chase the game. And I think that's my biggest criticism on someone like Hammer is, when you look at players like, Dylan Edwards, James Tedesco, these sort of players that should have chased, even Reece Walsh, I know Reece has a lot of errors in him, but he will take it to the game. Like he always tries to take it to the game. The Hammer, he can kind of let the game go by him. If the game doesn't open up for him, he can't really have that impact. So him at fullback, in those moments, especially, off kick chase, if Cleary was to get that pinpoint kick down the field, the Hammer, instead of, really getting on his bike, cattle dogging straight to the ball and trying to get up on it, he cruises to the ball. He takes his time. He gets the ball under him. And in those certain moments as a fullback, it's just not the greatest, for me, view set. Like it's not what I envision as a really good fullback in that sort of sense. I also think defensively in the line, if he finds himself close to the ruck, I think he's definitely going to be a play for the Blues to be charging Spencer, Payne Haas at. So for me personally, I prefer him at centre, but I do understand the reason why we put him at fullback for this one. Reece's not coming in full strength, even though he had a great game last week. But yeah, your thoughts on this too, bro? Like, because I know my thoughts on it.
You summed it up, brother. That's exactly where I'm at. I don't need to echo that. You hit the nail on the head there, brother. I completely agree with you.
And I think
sorry, buddy.
No, yeah, you're right. I think everyone kind of sees that out of Hammer as well. Like, whenever I talk to anyone about the Hammer, everyone's just like, just looks like he does things with ease. But sometimes when you do that, like, it just, I don't know. When I envision these fullbacks that are in the contest or for in the game, they're players that are just playing with heart. They're always in there and they lift the side in that sort of sense. With a Hammer, if you got someone at fullback that's just cruising to it, you kind of lull your team a little bit. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it anyway. But what you were saying, bro?
Yeah, great. Now, I was just going to ask you, where do you see Queensland attack, or where do you see their chances of victory here? And do you think if it is a Queensland win, how many points do you reckon it's going to be under?
First of all, I'll touch on, I think the easiest answer to this question, if Queensland win, I think it's going to be a real close one. I think like within the 2 to 4 points, 2 to 6 points. I think it's going to be a one-score game. Total match points are probably, at most. We showed the ability to get to 26 points. I think at most in this game is going to look to be a 22 point, that we can get to. The Blues have got the ability to fluctuate. They could go all the way to a 30 to 40 because they've got the attacking upside. There's a lot of great, especially with the ruck movement. I think the Blues are dominant in that area. But if we're able to make him play Queensland type of footy and get him in that grind first, I think that's where it kind of suits us to get that 20-point margin and defend with our hearts to try and get that win. But that's the way I envision us really going for this game. Yep. To your point with attacking, I think the best ability, I can see out of us is just playing second phase as much as we can, trying to find a way to win the ruck. Because at the end of the day, this is what we've been dominated in. But we got the players that, if we were able to do so, can really play on the front foot. I believe in some ways a little bit better in moments than the Blues players there. Like, it's always been a Blues thing where they're very structured, very rigid players. You got players like Jerome Luai is very good off the cuff. Dylan Edwards, when he finds himself in moments, yeah, for sure. But when you got looking at guys like Harry Grant, Tom Dearden, Cam Munster, you're looking at players that off the top of their head, the Hammer. They could just pull something out of nothing. And I think that comes from ruck speed, that comes from second phase, and that comes from just cutting in behind the ruck, having, Tom Dearden come off that right foot, really dictate and play direct, play run first footy. It's really hard to nail down a place that we're going to try to attack and continue to attack. But the best way I can say it is just play direct footy, play through the guts of the contest here, and then just play off the back of that. So I think that's the easiest way I can go about it, because it's going to be a tough task either way.
I think you hit the nail on the head, brother. It needs to be second phase play. So if I was Billy Slater, I'd be saying to Tino and to Paddy, especially in Tino's second stint, offloads. You have a license to offload. Probably not in the first stint, but in the second stint that Tino's going to have. And when Paddy comes on, you guys just have an absolute license to offload. And that's what I'll be telling these guys, because that's where points are going to come. And you need the Hammer and Harry Grant sniffing around that ruck. Cam Munster's going to, but you need to just tap into those guys to sniff around that ruck. Yeah,
100%. Like, I think that's again, it's the only thing that worries me about this contest, and I've spoken this to before, like, game two, like, my whole argument against the penalties and that was due to, the field position that the Blues were really finding themselves in, where it ended up being 6 again, stuff like that, right? We're going to go back into that. but it kind of definitely glossed over. You know, we still didn't, in my opinion, win the ruck in the game. I thought we had better moments than we did in game one. If game one just felt like just the Blues were rolling whenever they felt like they could just get down it. This game with Josh PAPALI'I coming to the squad, I feel like that's a real big nod to, you know, what Billy Slater's saying. No, we need to really knuckle down. That's the only way we're going to really win this game is play direct footy, play second phase, you know, win the ruck, try to blow out the ruck and let Harry Grant scheme. Let, like, you know, Tom did and just play off the top of his head. You know, that allows, as you said, the hammer to get into the contest because if you play second phase, as soon as you get through the first line of defense, the hammer's always there for support. And that's really the only way I can see us breaking it. And, you know, it's, as I said, it's really tough to when you look at the team list of the New South Wales Blues to say, what's the deficiency? Like, am I going to attack down Stephen Crichton's edge? You know what I mean? Like, you know, defensively, he's the best defensive center in the competition right now, even though he's got, you know, he just defends so well there. Latrell's probably the easy one to say, hey, we 100%. Can attack through that. But again,
especially with Luai, I think that's the edge Queensland need to attack is that right edge. We've seen it in game 2. I think Mitch Moses is so much better defensively than a Jerome Luai, and the combination between Latrell there and Moses was a lot more rock solid in game 1 than we've seen with Luai and Trell in game 2. So I definitely think that right edge is money for you guys if you can get enough good ball.
That's a great point, bro. Great point. Quickly on Jazz's question here. Jazzy obviously throwing mad shade because Jazzy's a massive Blues fan as well. How confident are you that the mighty Blues will get over the drag Queensland Toads? Brody, how confident are you in this contest coming in to this one?
Look, I'm 80% confident, but I was very confident with the Doggies and I got burnt on the weekend as well. So I don't know if you can ever be too confident, especially in a Blues jersey. Let's be honest.
All right. William Tucker. What's happening, brother? Do you think New South Wales will get the first try in the contest?
He's going on the early money bets, aren't you, brother? Yeah, get in there early. I think the first score of the game will be a penalty goal, but
yeah, it always
I think
is.
New South Wales will get the first try of the game. I think they will start a lot better than they did in game 2, and I think they'll score first.
Yep, love it. For me, I think for the Maroons, I think we'll have to try and shock early and try and score early. So I'm going to go Maroons, hopefully. But there's the ability that we camp ourselves on our try line, the Blues just to keep attacking us and find a little bit of points. And hopefully we can try and turn the contest in that sort of sense. But great question, Will. And Brody is a betting man. So if there's any men to listen to, that's a good way. And point, bro, that penalty for the first points is always a go in Origin for sure.
It's a go because, you know, once a team has to do back-to-back, you can definitely see a deliberate penalty coming. So that way the team takes a 2 and just releases that pressure valve just that little bit.
And last one before we jump off of State of Origin and give our scores and all that sort of stuff. Do you guys think Origin has become softer or more PC over the years because of all the rule changes and in case of the professionalism?
Yeah, I think it has. I don't think it's come softer. I think it's just the rules that have made it that way. And we've seen it straight away in game 1 that Origin is not getting reffed any different now to an NRL game. You know, it's kind of getting reffed the exact same. You know, we've seen that last year straight away with the sent off of SELWYN. You know, any other time in Origin, that's just a 10 minutes. So it's really changed the way that the guys go after each other, knowing that a sin bin could potentially happen.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right there with Brody. I do believe like softer is like that's a term, like, you know, I don't usually love saying the term because I'd still think that the boys, the contact and the contest still there. I still think like there's a lot of areas.
The contact is still there for sure.
But it's just like that extra line that gets crossed in Origin. I do think that's been pulled back just a tad. So I agree on that sort of sense. And it is being ref very similar to an NRL game for sure. And what's going on, Chris Shaw? Good to see you in the chat as well.
Yeah. In the chat, post up your score predictions and let us know what you think the margins will be. Any time try scorers, and me and Ash will start giving our predictions. I've got one last question for you, Ash, is what do you think the penalty count will be tonight?
Honestly, bro, I think that with all the news, talk around the penalty counts for the last couple of games, I think that the whistle will get put away just a tad. You know, I did have the first thought process. I think it's just going to swing back in the favor of the Blues just due to the way that it came out in the media, obviously in that game too. But I really do think that at the end of the day, it's just going to be stripped back completely. I think it's going to get played out the way it should. You allow the boys to fight it out. So for me, probably going to say at most, like as an overall penalties, you know, blown penalties, probably like 5, 6, 7, 8, around that sort of range. I think what in the last couple of games has been at a collective, probably about 15, something like that, right?
Yeah,
upwards.
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah, I do think it's going to get stripped back just a tad because of just the media around it. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the whistle will go away as well, especially early. You know, we'll see a lot of 6 agains because that's just kind of a given when a team's under the pump. But yeah, I think penalty-wise, it will go away, especially early.
100%. Great to see you guys jumping in the chat, giving us all your predictions here. My first try scorer, Krishan, for the Blues would be Zach Lomax.
Yep.
Mr. Tuba Dude, hi from NZ. I think 20-18 to Queensland. I think that's a really good one. And this guy's
penalty counts everyone.
this guy, Jazz. Here we go, mate. Oh, here we go. Turn it up, Jazzy. Turn it up, Jazzy.
Isn't that what they say? They can't play 13 on 13, Jazzy?
Aren't you a Kiwi, Jazzy, mate? Listen, have a discussion here. No, but we may as well, with the chat around the score predictions, bro. Let's go to our score predictions in this one. Blues by how much in your opinion? I'm guessing that's the track you're going to go down, and give us a try score for this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go 24-16 to New South Wales. I'm going to go an 8-point win. And yeah, I think Lomax double. In this one, if you're looking for a sneaky other try scorer, I think we might see Angus Crichton or a Nathan Cleary go over. But yeah, I think Lomax double.
Yeah, and lastly, give us your player of the match and maybe your player of the series.
Player of the match, I'm going to go with, I think Nathan Cleary really takes this one. Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Yeo for player of the match. And I think player of the series for me will be Payne Haas, if not Brian Toto, depending if Toto gets another double tonight. If Toto gets a double tonight, Toto player of the series. If he doesn't, if he's captured or held back to 1 try or no tries, Payne Haas player of the series.
I'm going to go for my Queensland Maroons. I'm thinking 20. Oh, I was right on the track with old mate there. It was like 20-18. So, I'm just going to run down that same track. 20-18. I think it's going to be a real close contest in this one. I think the Maroons, if they're going to come out with the victory, it's going to be, classic Maroons footy. Just camp down, just really try to withstand all the pressure the Blues going to throw in our way, and then just flick it straight back on them when we find the opportunity. I think, try score for me in this one. I'm going to go the way of Xavier Coates. Like, as you touched on before, if there's any way that we can kind of attack, it's going to go down Latrell Mitchell's side. Xavier Coates has had opportunities, obviously, in both games. The hammer in last game, scoring the tries on that edge as well. So I'm guessing that Xavier Coates will be on that edge defensively in this game, because Valentine Holmes was the other edge. Go to right? I think he will go to right, because I think Valentine in the last game, for game 1, he played left, right? Pretty sure in one of the games he played left.
They've changed it so many times because I think
it has been.
I think Coates did play right side game 1. Yeah, he did. Yep.
So I'm going to go that sort of way. Again, whoever's on that right side wing probably is going to try and hopefully find his way over. Player of the match for me. Again, like I don't want to continue to bring it up in that sort of sense because I do feel bad like with all the news around him, but I'm going to go Cam Munster. I think he's just got something to prove. It's just a storyline just going to really, win the hearts of everyone out there. And, if there's any guy to step up. And within doing that, I think that he can win player of the series because I'm pretty sure he won player of the match last game as well. If he goes bang, bang, I think that pretty much automatically gives him player of the series.
Well, he's pretty good in game 1 as well in a losing team. I think if Queensland were to win player of the match, has to be Harry Grant. And you'll see Cam Munster still get player of the series.
100%.
Yeah, the Kurt Capewell shout I like for player of the match and series, but I think he won't get series because he's only played 2 games. That's normally kind of how they look at it. But he was massive game 2, and if he's massive tonight, I don't see why he shouldn't. I'm liking the shout of Shibasaki, Toto, and Lomax anytime. The only thing I don't like about Shibasaki is it's up against Stephen Crichton. So, but hey, I could be wrong. Crichton does have to protect.
He's inside.
Cleary inside there, so that could be a shout for sure.
And Riff Naff. The game is rigged massive. That the last game was 5-6 go. First up, the New South Wales to win 20-10. Shout out to you, Riff Naff.
Yeah, look, I agree, brother. Hey, how can they have any of the advertisement that they've been pumping about Game 3 decider, all that bullshit, if the series was already done? So remember that.
Oh, we love it. We love the conspiracy theories here. And I think that's going to put a bow in the State of Origin chat.
Stop it.
Well, anything more you want to touch on Origin before we jump off, bro?
Nah, bro, but if you guys win the penalty count again, I'll bring you a nice whistle tomorrow, brother.
Oh, here we go. Turn it up. Turn it up. Also, guys, I want you guys to also keep an eye on your screens. If you are video game fans, Rugby League 26 is due to put out their announcement due to the State of Origin. But if you have already seen NRL Roast put up on Instagram, you kind of get it's a decent view away, but you get to see probably the video that's going to come out. And it looks great. To me, I think that from what it's kind of been, so, it's not the biggest, gaming company in the world making this game. I think they've done a fairly good job in that sort of aspect. Can't wait to get my hands on it. But brother, your thoughts quickly?
Yeah, same old. I don't really care for the graphics. I just want to play a rugby league game again. Play that career mode. Hopefully it's just a solid career mode. The best one I still say, man, is the Nintendo Wii one. That was the funnest one. I think that was the best career sort of situation I played on a rugby league game.
See, I have big memories of Rugby League Live 2, playing on PlayStation 3, where, I think that was the era, that was Ben Barber's Daily M year 2012. I think that was Sean Johnson, that Warriors side that made the grand final the year before. We had a great side in that. And all I was doing was honestly getting Kevin Locke doing exactly what Ben Barber was doing, getting him down to the dead ball line, charging out, going full field tries. So I think that was great memories doing that. And also great memories getting smoked by you, Rugby League Live 3 and 4.
We won't talk that up again, eh?
Josh Morris is a cheat code. I continue to bring it up. The Morris brothers are a cheat code, especially in those games. But major news.
I'm the cheat code.
Oh, get out. Hopefully it's more of a realistic game in this one so I can run through sets and stuff. You know what I mean?
Realistic of your skills, brother.
The last thing I'm really excited for is that the My Team feature, the Pro Team. That's going to be amazing. If they do it the right way, they do legends and stuff in the game, like a Legends Darren Lockyer, Andrew Johns, Ben Barber, Daly M. Like if they do any of that, I think that's a gold mine waiting to happen. So I think I can't wait to play that. So you upgrading your platform to get that? I'm pretty sure it's still out on the platform you have, but
I'm going to have to, bro, especially with GTA coming. So I'm going to have to spend the money.
Excited for those long games. And guys, I will be trying to stream the game as much as I can on my channel too. So if you want to jump in, come say hello and see some of the funny stuff that's going on in my career mode and my pro team, and maybe Brody even on the other end of the line, bashing me online.
100%.
All right. The next biggest news that I've probably seen going around rugby league right now is probably the biggest news I want to touch on before we go through our team of the week, and that Des Hasler set to retire at the end of the year. That is the rumor going around. I don't know if it's been fully set in stone just yet, but a news story has came out on Code. I think it was the first time I saw a break, but Des Hasler will be no more for the Gold Coast Titans at the end of the season and will retire from first grade rugby league. First of all, we'll touch on Des Hasler, the career that he had. Obviously, you know him as a Dogs coach in that little period that he's had, the resurgence of the Dogs in that little period there with that big forward pack, that mobile forward pack. Your thoughts on Desi's career as a coach? And obviously it is still sad to see a legend like this leave the game. But your thoughts are there of the retirement, first of all.
Yeah, I think Desi's had a pretty good career. You can't really knock what he's done in the game. I think money talks, though. I think if he was offered a gig, man, or if he was offered maybe the Australian gig, I think you would see Hasler stick around. I just think it's an easy way out of the Titans. And obviously there's a shortage of clubs for him to go to at the moment with already Perth locked up. So he's probably thinking I'll kick back for a while. But I reckon if he was approached with, an Australian job or something like that, he would definitely think about it.
Yeah, that's actually a really great shout. I did not think about this whole thing of like the Australian gig is still up for grabs. Brad Fittler turned it down.
Think outside the box, mate.
Think outside the box, bro. And within saying that too, obviously this is a major divot for the Gold Coast Titans. Again, the Gold Coast Titans lose another head coach. They've been through this. When Des Hasler first stepped into that role, there was all the man, like this guy is going to change the Gold Coast Titans. He's going to get the most out of them. And this year, it's been a failure. Call it as we see it. It has been a failure again for the Gold Coast Titans. Coaches out there to take over and hopefully to bring the Gold Coast back. Tough role, but who do you reckon is the closest one that can kind of, step up to the plate to kind of bring the Gold Coast at least lower than the wooden spoon threat this year.
I like Brad Arthurs for the job. I really do. He's got a really good hard edge to him. I don't think it was really Dez's fault on the Titans struggling so much.
Nah.
And I think that shows as well because they've recently sacked their recruitment coach. So Lockie tells us. But I think Brad Arthur would do a good job in the Titans. I just quickly want to shout out to the chat. We've seen a lot of new faces. You guys are absolutely outstanding. Thank you guys for coming through. And to answer your question, yes, we do this every Wednesday. And we also do a Supercoach, so at the end of it as well, if you guys do play Supercoach. But shout out to you guys being so supportive in the chat.
You guys have been incredible.
How about yourself, brother? What are you thinking on coaches for the Titans?
I think for me, it's like the way I see the Gold Coast is, when we look at our clubs, right, personally, like, the Dogs, the form they were being in, they'd gone through coach after coach to try and reinvigorate, the Doggies, very similar to my New Zealand Warriors. Junior bases, we settled in our junior bases. We got that system in the order and we got a coach that believed in that. You had Serraldo, we have Andrew Webster, and where they've kind of, uptick from there. You got coaches like Dean Young, young coaches come up through the ranks. I believe like looking down those sort of routes, not like, Benji Marshall got put into that Tigers role without too much going on there. I don't really believe in that big name. Just put him in there. He's going to do a job. Like a Josh Hannay is probably one for me, being Queensland's assistant coach as well. Being around the Queensland squad, he does a lot of good attacking coaching from what I hear as well. So it probably suits the Gold Coast a little bit there. And he's probably a guy that will probably know that you have to rely on a system. And we're touching on that, bro. Seeing Code Sports put out their stars, the Titans let go. And there's even more to add to this list. And these are all the guys that they could have had in their system and kept them around. So Reece Walsh and the Broncos, he came through Keebra Park and Narang. So obviously that's a Gold Coast region they let go. Xavier Coates, Currumbin Eagles, Nick Meaney in that same area as well. Xavier Savage, Dean Mariner, Tom Dearden, Jerome Hughes, who was in their junior under 20s. Max King, Reese Robson, Payne Haas, grew up in the Keebra area, even though he was a Bronco junior. Brendan Piercorta, Xavier Willison, Jai Arrow, Jamal Fogarty, Cody Walker, Toby Sexton, Blake Moser. And no more stat is now that the Warriors have brought up Tanner Boyd into that 7 jersey. All the top 4 halfbacks have had their taste in Gold Coast Titans. So if they're able to figure it out, is build through their junior base, have a coach that's willing to take the time and learn and continue to grow with the squad. I believe Josh Hannay, stuff like that, a coach like that. Even as you said, Brad Arthur was known for that with the Parramatta Eels as well, to build from the ground up, because they've had, I think the last 10 years, they've had the most Australian schoolboys halfbacks come through their system, and they've not nailed on one of them. Every other team is reaping the benefits from that. So are you looking down that track as well with me? Like you said, Brad Arthur, but do you like that sort of shout as well?
Yeah, I actually love that Josh Hannay shout now, brother. The more that you talk about it, you want somebody from the area, somebody that knows the juniors, somebody that will go out and give the time to the schools as well to bring those juniors through and attract them to the Gold Coast and to make it a club that people want to play for. I know the fan base isn't really there, but I reckon if you strung together a few wins, I definitely think for sure you could build that there. But yeah, that's a great stat. And I think the one you need to focus on more is guys that have had that jersey on and then left. Not so much what they did miss out on, because you could probably go through a lot of clubs, and say who they missed out on. Like the Cowboys again, like you go through who they had.
Brandon Smith,
but let's talk about who played NRL for that club and then moved on. And I think that's the telling stat of the Titans.
That's 100% true, bro. And, just like, it's just to kind of put a bow on it in that sort of sense. Like when I look at, Andrew Webster, Cam Serraldo, they've done their tutelage through the Penrith system. They learned, how to build a club in that sort of sense. And, Webby jumped around from different clubs. He was an assistant coach with us at one period, then went to the Tigers, went to the Panthers. I think Josh Hannay is in that similar mold, that he's been around a lot of really good systems. He's coached, he's took his time, he's learned his craft. He's a younger head coach. He's willing to grow with the times. I think we got to stop giving these coaching roles to certain, like Anthony Griffins, we saw Des Hasler get the job and all that sort of stuff in those sort of realms. I think we need to start like pivoting now that I think football's grown professionally in an area and systematically in an area that you just got to step up your game in those areas. I think Josh Hannay probably is the best one there. Dean Young could get thrown up there, but I think Josh Hannay probably is a good shout there.
The last shout for me, which what I'd love to see happen, but I don't think it will, is a redemption story for Kevy Walters to go to the Titans and then bring the Titans to a finals team. I don't think it will happen, But I would love to see that. You know, he had a lot of respect to those Broncos boys. Some of them just walked all over him, but I know Payne was pretty big on him. And if to have somebody like Payne Haas say that, you know, you're doing something right, shouts out to how you are as a coach. So I would love to see a redemption story there and Kevy get the job and really excel there and bring the Titans up to a good team, but I don't see it.
And the last shout I want to give out there too is Willie Peters, that's coaching in the Super League currently right now. He took Hull to their, it was a Challenge Cup premiership, because the Super League have many different, you know, cups and stuff like that they got going on. But it was the first premiership, I'm pretty sure, Hull's history in 40 years or something like that. Jared Warrior-Hargreaves went to that club and did what he did. I think he's been a very good coach in that sort of sense to do that. You know, obviously Titans fans, when they hear that, they hear Justin Holbrook of what he did in the Super League coming over, and he didn't really fix him in that area. But I think Gold Coast fans are just, whatever coach you get in there, get behind him. You know, hopefully the higher ups are making the right decisions, which kind of they haven't been in a way. But, you know, that's the only way you can change this club around, is build from the ground up and just work with the community that you got out there. I think that's what both our clubs have done so well for this period. I think Gold Coast need to look into it that sort of way as well if they want to get off the bottom ladder, because I think we can all agree they've got incredible talent in their roster. They just can't put it together.
100%.
Tans with a question here. Did you guys see the post about what Tino had to say about the club? He said something along the lines of wanting the clarity around where the club is going.
Yeah, I did see that. And I think that's when the news got released of sacking their recruitment manager. So I think the Titans are trying to do something. Otherwise, they will lose guys like Tino, and that won't be good for them. Yeah, can you imagine Tino into that Dolphins squad? I mean, man, scary.
Bruh. Incredible. Yeah, I'm right there with Brodie as well. You know, it's good to see a leader out there in the club that they have, like someone like Tino. You know, I think we can all agree, you know, he deserves the utmost respect of what he's done for the club in this whole period, because a lot of other footballers probably would have upped and left and took their bags and gone with the 100%. Way the Titans have been going. So shout out to him as well. Is that all we want to touch on with the Gold Coast Titans? And that shout out to Lockie. You're not even here in the chat, like, you know, talking Gold Coast, and, you know, he doesn't turn up. Shout out to Lockie.
Yeah, shout out to Lockie. Probably needed an invite.
Yeah, probably. Even then, I'm sure Maddie probably would have turned up first. But anyway, continuing on. Quickly, I want to review the weekend of the NRLW, bro. Great performances out there, left, right, and centre. Parramatta getting a good win over the Sharkies. Your Doggies. Incredible first game. Everyone know that's watching women's rugby league. They know the Doggies system has been incredible coming up through. Now they've got into a first grade spot, 26-12 against the Newcastle Knights team that a lot had up there with, you know, obviously around the premiership heavyweights. That's a big first win for your girls, eh?
Yeah, I didn't watch too much of this. I didn't watch too much footy over the weekend as a whole, but I didn't catch any of the women's games. I did catch some of this game leading up to the Doggies NRL game. And what can I say is I didn't expect the girls to go so well. You know, a new team that's come together and to roll a team like the Knights, it's a full credit there.
And with our team of the weeks and stuff, guys, I'm willing to work down it, like, because I've combined men and women, like, just on these top performances as our teams of the week. So I think we're going to go down that sort of route as well. The Broncos had a massive win over the Tigers, 28-4. A lot of big performances in that game. The Dragons with a massive win over the Raiders in this one, 36-14. As a little bit of a smoky shot, a lot of people are coming, you know, talking about the Cowboys 20-6 against the Gold Coast Titans teams that has been a little bit depleted with a couple of their superstars out due to pregnancy and stuff like that. So shout out to those girls. And also the Roosters trumping my New Zealand Warriors there, 32-6. But still a little bit, I believe all the Warriors community is getting around these Warriors girls and see the green shoots that we have there. There's a lot of great talent there. It's just going to take time before they see these Warriors girls hit a new level. But have you changed your thought process just seeing some of the results over the weekend of who you think is going to win the comp? I know you had the Roosters. We're talking about the Broncos. Is there a smoky in there around about, or do you think that, like, that's probably going to be set in stone this year? Broncos, Roosters. That's
pretty clear cut, to be honest. Just from that one game, it looks pretty clear cut that they're the two heavyweights.
100%. I'm right there with you, bro. I think your Doggies is a great smoky shout. I thought they looked incredible over the weekend. Again, new team in the comp, so it's going to take a little bit more time to continue to grow, but that base is incredible. And as I said before, the Dragons, you know, when you got a fullback of Tegan Berry, just, you know, and then you got Indy Bostock, you know, doing what she's doing on the wing, like, she absolutely killed it, bro. Racing McGregor. I think that they are going to be a team to watch out for, guys. So make sure you continue to go out, guys, and support the NRLW. They're doing amazing things. Big game week this week. Obviously, there are no men's Thursday night footy, but there is women's Thursday night footy watching the West Tigers and the Dogs. So, guys, keep your usual schedules. Tune in for the NRLW. You see the Dogs versus West Tigers on Thursday night. We all love our footy 100%. In the chat. Make sure you jump on that too. And I'm sure Brody will be watching, seeing those Doggies girls take on Clancy's West Tigers.
I will be indeed.
All right, but let's move through to our team of the week, bro. Our hit of the week, try of the week, play of the week, and egg of the week. Starting off at fullback. Who have you got?
Yeah, none other, brother. KO Weeks.
Yeah, incredible game from KO. Absolutely dominated out there. He's been an incredible little find for the Raiders this year.
He's just growing into that position so well.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I've gone with KO Weeks as well. I think he's pretty much undeniable this week as the fullback of the week.
Well, Nick Meaney is a sneaky shout as well.
Smoky little shout there too. Moving to your wingers, bro. Who have you got?
I went with Ruben Garrick, and I went with oh, what the fuck happened to my team? Shit, bro. I don't know. I had Turbo, but he didn't play wing.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll let you have it. I've done this before. You know what I mean? Shout out Simi Sasungi. Couldn't even get the name out of my mouth. But we'll let you have it. We'll let you have it.
Okay. Who'd you go, brother?
I went Ruben Garrick, and I went with an NRLW girl, Indy Bostock. I thought she was incredible over the weekend for the Dragons. So shout out to her.
I'll follow you in on that, brother.
100%.
I had Marky Mark in the centers, but I was supposed to have Marky Mark on the wing, but he played center.
Would you have Josiah Karapani maybe?
I don't know, bro. My back five is fucked this week. So, because I had Meaney in the centers as well, but he didn't play centers. See, I didn't watch much footy this weekend. So
that's okay, bro. Let's go to this centers of the week. I had Tom Trebojevic and Mark Nwanganitawase. You on the same track there?
Well, yeah, they're my two centers now that Meaney didn't play, and I didn't have a winger. Let's go with that.
Beautiful. Moving to the halves of the week. Who have we got?
I went with Ezra Mann and Jamal Fogarty.
I went with Latu Fainu and Ezra Mann.
Latu played killer.
Latu was unreal, and Ezra, that second half performance that he had was a great one against your Doggies there. Front row, who'd you have?
I had Terrell May and I had Nafahu White.
I had Nafahu White. I had Xavier Willison. I think that he's consistently been, for this period without Payne Haas there, a big standout for the Broncos.
Yeah, he killed it, Xavier Willison. So I do like that shout.
Number 9.
I went with Reed Marnie. I thought he was really, really good in that first half. I know the second half, there's no fault of his, but the game kind of got away from the Dogs as a whole. But that first half, Reed Marnie was really, really well. Yeah,
100%, bro. I can't go away from that. I did, though. I went Tristan Hope. I know. That was the weirdest way to go around.
Shout out to Ash. I can't go away from that, but I had somebody else.
I'm going to, yeah. But I've got Hope. Shout out to Tristan Hope. You're getting into that Tigers system. I think the Tigers have found a nice, good one there. Moving on, Talon De Silva. They are going to go down the route of this other young junior they've got coming through the grades at the moment. But Tristan Hope, coming from, I think he moved his family from Queensland, moved it down to Sydney to make this one club happen, the one moment happen. And I think he's done a good job, and he did a great job over the weekend.
Yeah, I like the shout, brother, for sure. It's good seeing guys get a chance. Yeah, for sure.
100%. Moving to edge back row.
I went Pierre Cora and Sean Bloor.
Yeah, good shout. Good shout. I went with Pierre Cora, and I went with your Doggies edge back row there. Alexis Talania. I thought she was... Yep, she was absolutely incredible, bro. Stat line, incredible. Scored a try from memory as well. She looks like she's going to be a handful out there too.
Yeah, I like it.
And lastly, 13 of the week.
Oh, he finally got his first try in the NRL. I couldn't go past Morgan Smithies.
Yeah, shout out to old Morgie Smithies. I love that shout. I went Olivia Koenig. Shout out to NRLW. Yeah, she's an absolute beast. If anyone knows NRLW, they know that name for sure. So great game from her over the weekend. Moving over to hit of the week, bro. Who have you got? I've got a couple of names here, but what do you got?
I went with Karapani on Preston at such a pivotal moment in the game as well. I love seeing wingers come in and put a big shot on a back rower, and this one was beautiful. It hurt me watching, but it was a beautiful shot.
Yeah, it hurt Presto too. He that rib check was a tough one there. But shout out to Presto. Hit of the week for me, I've gone with the NRLW Isabella Waterman on Bobby Law. So the Raiders girl on the Dragons girl. Incredible shot.
Yeah, that was probably my runner up. That was a massive shot.
Amazing shot. The other ones I had a name there we spoke about before. Matt Tomoko on King Tonga. I thought that was a great hit as well. And I had Karapani on Preston there too.
Yeah, nice. Shout out to tons in the chat. Latu Fanu as well. White Willison. Samuel Fanu. Yeah, that was a great game.
Great game from him as well.
Yeah. Yep. Nice.
Moving to try of the week.
Yeah, Matt Burton, brother. Shout out to Marcelo, who is now also ruled out this week as well.
Yeah.
And for a fair bit of the season. But shout out to him with the little magic trick there, running backwards to go forward. And shout out to Cobbo for being a good fullback.
Yeah, I was like, yelling, get on your bike, Cobbo. And he didn't get on his bike, or he just went completely past the ball. So not a game to remember. Yeah, no, not a game to remember for Selwyn there. I went KO weeks against the Dragons. 8 defenders as we were counting before the show.
9 if you count the referee.
Incredible.
Well, that's only a defender if it's a Queensland game, isn't it?
Well, shout out to Tony Carroll. He was taking out referees left, front, centre.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Let's not bring that one back up.
No, definitely not. And shout out to Tans in the chat following you in there on KO Weeks' try.
Yeah, he is incredible, man. He was incredible. And shout out to Jacob Little, a little under, in that motion there too. Jacob Little got on his bike and man, he showed some speed to try and chase down KO. Just unable to get the tackle at the end of the day. But fuck, shout out to him too.
Say a little underappreciated.
Oh, you've caught the bug now. This show's done something to you.
Ash is rubbing up on me, guys.
I love it. All right, play of the week, bro.
KO Weeks, brother.
I was going to say dad joke right in there. Player of the week, KO weeks, brother, all day.
I missed it. I missed the opportunity.
Yeah, sponsored by KO too, by the way. So go check out your KO. But incredible game from him. I thought he was unbelievable. And lastly, egg of the week, bro.
You give me yours, brother, and then I'll roll ours into our review from last week.
So I've got a couple of them, right? So my first, egg of the week, stupid play. Robert Derby, we know him, the rocks and diamonds type of player. He had a moment there where the ball got kicked and, could have regathered quite easily. He fumbled the ball dead into goal. It was a key moment there for that game. But the funny moment of the week for me was that try celebration from the Raiders girls and the commentator just sitting there and going, how do I describe what is going on my screen right now to everyone else? Of course, she's being a cow being milked, but that's as far as we're going to go here without getting cancelled from YouTube.
We're gonna leave that there, I think. But yeah, I agree, brother. That's a great egg of the week. And maybe for July, we'll come up with a segment for our try celebration of the week. And for me, this week was probably Nick Meaney with the Indonesian boat racing. That's blown up everywhere. That's blown. Actually, I did like the DCE shout as well with the walking stick.
The walking stick. Yeah, that was incredible. But did you have an egg of the week, or are you going to run on the same track as me there?
Nah, my egg of the week rolls into our week review, and at the moment, it's got to be the doggies. A last-minute change for Lockie Galvin to play 5'8", and I'm not saying the complete loss came down to Lockie Galvin. I just think the doggies didn't really handle that second half too well at all when that momentum swung, and I just felt like Galvin was trying a little too hard to put his stamp on the game and come up with a couple of crucial errors and key moments where the doggies would normally take the safe route, especially 18-0 up, and put a kick up in a corner and just keep grinding. Whereas Galvin's trying to go for the kill with, cutout balls, instead of putting it up, running it on last tackle, stuff like that. And the whole loss isn't on Galvin. That's not what I'm saying. And I know the media is trying to blow that up because that's exactly what we knew was going to happen. But I'm going to say that's the egg of the week for the Dogs because they blew an 18-point lead just by forcing their hand and, Galvin just trying to bite off a bit more than he needed to in those moments. But I dare say the Dogs will learn from that. And hopefully Seraldo can play Galvin a couple of games in our cup, especially if our cup's got the same system. Let him get some confidence about him, let him get the system down pat, and then bring him back up, whether it's on the bench or into the halves.
Yeah, on to that game, bro. 22-18. You know, you bring up a great point there. And when we discuss Lockie Galvin, like, you know, guys that have known, been fans of the show, our view set on, you know, how the media kind of swing with things. And we knew that this was going to happen as soon as the Doggies get a couple of losses. And when you look at it in a grand scheme of things, I know the Dogs are in a premiership race and they should be beating sides like this in some sort of sense, but they had a grand final type atmosphere game against the Penrith Panthers that have found their form again, playing incredible football. So again, like when I look at that, I'm like, you know what, the Doggies haven't lost too much. And when you go up against the Broncos, that I know they're down on troops, but the Broncos have been in form for the last couple of weeks. They've had some really big scalps. They've really found their form as well. You know, in that sort of area, right? Like the Doggies, they will learn from this and they will grow from this. I do agree with the sentiment, though, of I think Lockie Galvin just needs to take time to learn the system. Like, it just showed over the weekend that Lockie Galvin's playing Lockie Galvin footy and not playing, you know, Doggies footy at the moment. And which is like, you know, he's only a young kid still. Like, people got to understand this. He's still fresh into first grade. There was moments in the game, like we pointed out, you know, it was a great chat between me and Brody about like our discussion of whether he does need to go down to Cup and learn a system or whatever happens there. But Cooper Cronk put it really well in the actual game call. It was a moment where I'm pretty sure the other commentator brought out and said, incredible moment from Lockie Galvin. You know, it was a fifth tackle play. He stripped numbers. I think he got Matt Burton down the sideline, you know, and it ended up, you know, I think Matt Burton had to chip it back inside. And it was one of those plays that ended up working out in a way, but it didn't in its grand scheme of things of the system. And the way Cooper kind of put it in, he's like, yeah, incredible for the highlight, incredible for, you know, that's a Lockie Galvin play, but that's not a Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs play this year. Like the Bulldogs would just get to their fifth tackle, boot it to the corner, cage kick, and just work for your system. Defensively, that's how you dominate sides. And you were dominating the Broncos defensively in that game for 60 minutes of that game. But unfortunately, when you have those errors that continue turning your team back in a bad field position, it just negates all the hard work that your system builds throughout a game. So again, it's not on Lockie Galvin. I don't think the loss is on Lockie Galvin, but there is a talking point there to the fact of this kid's going to take a little bit more time to learn your system. It's not going to be an overnight thing. He's going to drop in and just be like this big boom player that everyone is expecting. You know, first grade is a professional sport and there's a lot of tough opposition out there. It takes time to learn a system.
100%. And I think it's a great signing for our future. But right now, without the preseason under his belt, which was my concern to begin with, is that he needed time. And I like that he's coming off the bench and stuff like that. But I think maybe he would benefit from a couple 80-minute games at starting half in Cup. I really do. I'm not worried about the Dogs' 2 losses in a row. Penrith game, I don't count as a loss. There was no loser in that game. That was an outstanding game. Just more disappointed about blowing an 18-point lead. You know, we're normally good at coming back and fighting our way into games, not blowing 18-point leads. And I know we had a lot of star power out, and if we had those guys in, that wouldn't happen. But, yeah, I'm just disappointed. And it's like I keep saying, it's not just on Galvin, but I just think there was a couple of key moments where we had the chance to just get back into that grind, and we chose to go away from it. You know, the cutout ball led to a Stag 60-meter line break and then a try on the back of it, and that's kind of when it started. Whereas if we just back our defense by kicking to a corner, we could have just grounded away that victory, and that's the only disappointing part for me. But I'm sure Ciro will fix that, and confidence I have in him as a coach, I think we'll be okay.
I think it's just like you could definitely see just the way that rugby league is viewed around the world, or like, you know, just around everyone. I think as soon as a big team starts to get a loss like that, people jump already to red alerts, and they say it's going to be a complete fall off. And that, like for me, as a when I watch the Warriors or when I watch just teams in general, I like to watch, you know, a decent chunk of period and say, what's the consistent theme here? Are they falling off in these areas, or is it just like these moments at the moment? And first grade, you know, you can't consider, like as a human being, you know, you're going to have moments where you're going to go flat. There's going to be moments where you're not going to be consistent every single week. It's just not the way it happens. The Panthers was a variable in that sort of aspect. And even them, they had flat spots, but they still found ways to win there. The Bulldogs will turn us around. They've got a great system. They've already shown ability for this long period of time that their system's good enough to turn these things around. But I agree with you. There is definitely some things to be looked at, to continue to study and see if that's like is being a factor at the moment. And it's definitely something I'm sure you'll be continuing to look at and watch over for a long period of time, to kind of get your view set on the Dogs and kind of be like, is this really affecting us? Was this the right move? What's really happening here? I don't think you can kind of label it right now. I think it's just still in that phase of like, we don't know what it's going to look like later on. But
exactly,
you know, that's rugby league for you. That's the way it works. As soon as the team loses in that, they're going to blame a kid and they're going to say that was a dud move. And, you know, it's going to be a struggle to shake that, but I'm sure that Lockie is good enough to shake that in future. But
yeah,
with saying that, do you want to jump into our preview for the weekend?
Yeah, if there's no more other games you wanted to touch on from last week, you know, you can quickly go through those results. And, you know, we don't need to touch too much on the Raiders-Dragons. You know, really good game there. Another win for the Raiders. That's all that matters. Dragons did well to nearly nip that one off them. You know, Storm, you know, late withdrawal of Ryan Pappenhausen kind of hindered their chances of winning this one, but they still strung through. And the big upset of the week, I guess, was the Tigers rolling the Roosters. I know the Roosters had a few players out, but, you know, the Tigers are missing Luai as well and a couple due to injury. So,
yeah, big win there for the West Tigers. We'll quickly touch on that. Like, you know, against the Rooster side, as you said, like, you know, this Rooster side's not the Rooster side that we all kind of know. And, you know, that backline's still very good. Mark Nwangani-Tuwase, Dylan, Daniel Tupou, James Tedesco, stuff like that, right? But when you look at these forward pack here, Makatoa, like, you know, these guys are sort of first graders, but then you go to this bench here, like you got names that are playing New South Wales Cup week in, week out, and they will be that talent. Not to say, you know, the Tigers have that in areas as well. Like even their bench, like, you know, to carry, you know, Kier and Charlie Murray, stuff like that into this game. You know, great performance and great win, especially when the media's looking at them at the moment, and as they are, as they always are with the Tigers. And I think Tigers fans should, you know, lap it up as much as they can through these periods, because with the media coming down on them, get a win like that just shows that they've got a little bit of an edge to them as well.
100%.
But yeah, we'll move over to the weekend that is coming up, brother. The first game of the weekend, we got the Sharks versus the Dolphins at Shark Park. In this game, obviously, you know, judging on players that maybe would back up here and there, we'll have to wait and see after Origin. But obviously, both these squads look close to full strength as much as they can be. Sean O'Sullivan coming in for Cody Nicolima with that hamstring injury, which sucks. How are you looking at this game? Do you think the Sharks find a way to bounce back because they really need to at this point? Or do you think the Dolphins continue the form that they're on now?
Oh, it's tough. I think if the Hammer plays and the combination he has with Katoa there will find enough points to break the Sharks up, just like we've seen the Broncos do to the Sharks. But if he doesn't play, I think we might see just enough dip in their attack for the Sharks to roll them in this one. And they are desperate. Tans is exactly right. So I will go the Sharks in this one, 1-12. And make sure you do chuck in your score predictions or who you're tipping for each game as well in the chat. And we'll throw that up as well, just to see who is majority tips going towards. But yeah, Sharks for me in this one, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to go Sharks 1-12. Your thoughts, Sean O'Sullivan, Isaiah Katoa as a halves pairing in there. Every time we've seen Sean get paired up with Isaiah, I do think he takes a little bit of the reins away from Isaiah. And I think at the moment they're playing so well under Isaiah's, you know, pulling the right reins. Do you think that's going to be a little bit, as you kind of said, maybe take a little bit of time before that kind of meshes itself again? Or do you think it takes away from Isaiah's game having Sean O'Sullivan outside of him instead of like a Cody Nicolima that plays off the back of him? Is what I'm
100%.
saying.
I think Nicolima just pops up where he needs to pop up, and he's just got that explosiveness about him. I would really probably like to see them go the route of Alvarado at 5'8".
Agreed.
But, you know, maybe Sean O'Sullivan's killing it in Cup, and they wanted to give him the first crack. Or they're saving Alvarado to potentially play fullback this week because the Hammer's out. But for me, I would probably like to see Alvarado just have that flair, play off the ball, play off second phase, a bit like the Nicolima role. I think Alvarado could have that about him.
Yeah, it's kind of got the similar sort of vein of what Nico Hines and Braden Trinidad have been dealing with all year, right? Like, you know, having those two style of halves just aren't really, like, the balance is kind of out of whack. You know, when I see Sean O'Sullivan in there, it's kind of just like, yeah, it's two halfbacks here. Like, you know, you're going to go sideways probably a little bit too much. They're not going to have too much direction comparatively because the balance is a little bit out of whack. You don't have that one member that's just going to fall behind, you know, Nico Hines, as what Matt Moylan did in that period and what, you know, Cody Nicolima did for Isaiah Katoa. But I'm right there with you, bro. Sharks at home, they need to bounce back. I'm going Sharks 1-12 in this one.
100%. And you barely need to open this one, brother. It's Melbourne Storm, whether their players back up or not.
Well, that was the real question. Melbourne versus Newcastle at McDonald Jones Stadium. Newcastle at $4 odds. Is this any way you're looking that way at $4? No way. No way.
No. So Melbourne 20 plus if their stars back up, Melbourne 13 plus if they don't back up.
You know what's crazy though? It's like when I see this Newcastle Knights lineup, and it's been like this all year, right? You should just go like, you know, how are they in the position that they are? Like, you know, the players, you know, the system's obviously not working. You know, you got names like, you know, again, we touched on the two halfback look. I don't like that halves pairing in general, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to say Adam O'Brien change your halves again because he's been doing it all fucking year. So really,
it's that spine for me that just lacks them out of games. You know, they've got a solid enough back line. They've got a solid enough forward pack. It's just their spine as a whole, 1 through to 9.
Yeah.
1, 6, 7, and 9.
I'm going to go the way Melbourne Storm 1 to 12. Did you go 13 plus, Melbourne?
Yeah, 20 plus if they back up, 13 plus if they don't back up.
Yeah, I'm going to go Melbourne 1 to 12. I'm going to give a little bit more to the way of the Knights just due to how the Cowboys kind of looked against Melbourne over the weekend. If their players bounce back, yeah, I can see this. It could get pretty tough.
That's the Cowboys, though. Cowboys do have a lot of points in them, and they will contest in most games.
That's true. The only argument I have to that, defensively, the Knights are a better defensive side.
Yeah, you're right. But
maybe. I don't know.
Meh.
Continuing on, we got the St. George Illawarra Dragons versing the Sydney Roosters at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. This again relies on a lot of whatever happens in Origin 2 backing up here, especially for the Roosters, in my opinion. Do you see the Dragons having the ability to get over the top at $2.58 against the Roosters at $1.51?
No, I don't see it. I think the Roosters win this one with or without their Origin stars, but it would be a lot easier with them.
Yeah. I think with the team list that they got running out there, I'm going to go the way of the Roosters. I think they can push this out to a 13 plus. The Roosters love playing the Dragons. Even though this was the game, I think last year or the year before where the Dragons had the big upset. I think it was the year before, where I'm trying to think who had the game winning try in that one. Was it Bud Sullivan? Or it was the young half that they had. But anyway, yeah, massive game. But I don't see it happening that way. I'm going Roosters 13 plus in this one.
Yep, I agree, brother.
Yep.
Roosters 1 to 12 in the chat. Roosters, yep. And Storm 104-6, yep.
Love you guys in the chat out there. All right, big game for you. The Cowboys versus the Doggies at Townsville. Again, looking at these ins and outs, guys, I'll be sitting here forever if I'm going ins and outs here. But what we got here on your team list, are you feeling confident going down to Townsville, up to Townsville, and getting the job done to bounce back?
Yeah, I'm not sure the thought process behind Blake Wilson not getting that wing spot. Anale was not too bad last week, and maybe he's always kind of been the next man up, but he's only come back from injury recently. So, I like that shout there. I really hope that Serraldo kind of picks and sticks to the sides. I haven't liked that the last 2 weeks. I want to see Karaz and Critter back together, and I want to see Sherry back on that left edge and stay on that left edge. I think he's so much more effective there. Other than that, yes, I'm liking the squad. I hope that all of our boys are fit and can back up. I think we will potentially see Sluka Fifita up next. I was surprised to see Jamin Salmon there, but I think that's more so the fact that we had to name such a big squad because the Origin boys. I don't think Jamin Salmon's back from a broken ankle this soon. So that's a weird name there. That's just a fill the card, in my opinion. So
if he's back, oh god,
I don't think he will be, brother. I really don't. So what have we got? Like a 25 or top 30?
Yep, it goes down to 25.
Yeah, so I think he's just been named for the sole fact that it won't hinder swapping him out of cup to back and forth. If you name somebody else, but he won't be playing. His ankle's still, in my opinion, broken. So, nonetheless, like the team, hope the boys back up, and I hope they bounce back, and I hope they bounce back in a big way. Little bit worried about Drinkwater's flair, but other than that, I think the boys can get this one done in a big way. I'm going to go 13 plus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. I think the Dogs need to bounce back and give a little bit of a statement here. And good teams like this, they do have these games where they do bounce back and have a great performance. Whether it's 1 to 12, 13 plus, I don't care. The win's got to happen, but there's got to be some sort of dominant fashion there. I'm going to go to Dogs with you, 13 plus as well. I think that they bounce back in a big way against a Cowboys side that defensively are just not really finding themselves. And I think the Dogs, just their pressure over time, they'll get some points later on in this game, push it out.
Yeah, hopefully, brother.
Hopefully. Moving over to my New Zealand Warriors versus the West Tigers at Go Media Stadium in Auckland, New Zealand. So, obviously, names that are out. No Luke Metcalf, no chance. Luke Metcalf, obviously, season ender. Tane Tuapiki. Dallin Watini-Lesniak returns early off of his injury as well. and Tanner Boyd comes into that 7 jersey. First of all, for me, bro, I'm really excited for this contest. We've had 2 losses on a trot. We've had a bye. I'm sure we can fix up a lot of those things. I do think it will take a little bit before we start to see that connection really come back. We know Tanner Boyd, with a new connection there, but I do see a lot of the areas that he can help us in as well. So I'm going to go Warriors 13 plus in this one for us to bounce back against a decently named Tigers side, in my opinion. But I'm going to go Warriors 13 plus to bounce back.
Yeah, I just quickly want to shout out to Tons in the chat. Yeah, I really like Salukla Fafita as well. Just finishing up on the doggies. I think he's got a bit to his game. As for your boys in this one, I definitely think it'll be a statement piece to say, hey, we are still here. We've got a good system. We're going to compete. I completely agree with you. I think Warriors 13 plus here. I like Tane at the back. You probably gain some upside in attack, but maybe just drop a little bit reliability in meters. But hopefully Dallin and Tuivasa can pick that back up. I'm really liking Tanner at the moment. There's been huge raps around him from Webby. And I just think that he doesn't need to overplay his hand. He doesn't need to try and be Luke Metcalf. He just needs to be Tanner Boyd. Good kicking game. Hopefully Chanel will find his own now to be that more explosive creator of attack there. And I think it's going to be still a good balanced squad for you boys. I think you will get this one done.
Yeah, 100%. And Tarns Waitberry on the left. Nah, he'll be on the right. Yeah, he'll be on the right. Sometimes, when they name their team list this way, it's not like the old school days. It doesn't really have a side either way. Like, you see 3s and 4s play on opposite edges all the time. So I don't look at it that way. So
it's a number thing.
Yeah, it is a number thing. I think in older days it meant a little bit more in sort of sense, but I think these days it's just, it's just a number on the back.
Exactly.
Moving over to the Parramatta Eels versus the Penrith Panthers at CommBank. Penrith haven't named a lot of their, obviously any of their Origin members to back up. They have named them all in reserves. With the Eels as well, still no Mitchell Moses back. He's not named in their reserves either. So your thoughts on this contest? Is Penrith's system just continue chugging along for their trip back into the finals?
Yeah, I think Penrith will get the job done 1-12. Just the desperation, whether they've got the players backing up or not. I think they've got enough here to win this game and expect a big game out of Blaze against his old club.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one there. That's a great shout. I'm going to go Panthers. Panthers 13 plus. I think they can push it out to a margin too late.
Yep. I could see it.
I think it probably helps if their Origin players are in it for sure. But, I think they can still do it.
For sure if their players are back. But if not, I think they'll get the job done still.
Yeah. And the last game of the weekend, Queensland derby here of the Gold Coast Titans versus the Brisbane Broncos at Cbus Super Stadium. Gold Coast fans would remember this game of last year where the Titans absolutely took the Broncos to town. They'll be hoping to do the exact same thing here, but with a team list that is named on paper, it looks like it may be an uphill battle, especially the news around Des Hasler. Do you think the news around Des Hasler gives them an extra boost to say, hey, fuck it, we're just going to go at this game and really take it to the Broncos? Or do you think the Broncos continue on their streak at the moment?
I'd like to say yes, because I can potentially see it happening. We did see it last year. Nobody picked it. But I just can't see it. I wouldn't put my money on it. I got to go the Broncos in this one, and I think it'll be 13 plus late.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I can't really see it going another way. You got Dave Fafita falling, naming on the bench. Does he have a little bit more impact now coming back into the side? But it's been heavily scrutinized.
Hunt's back as well.
It's a big one there for the number 9. So I'm going to go Broncos 13 plus in this one again. I just think the Titans this year, it's just been that packet of just disappointment, unfortunately. Even in games where you're trying to find positives, it's tough to consistently find positives with the Gold Coast Titans.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. Everyone likes a good Gold Coast Titans side. And I know Lockie would be loving a good Gold Coast Titans side, but it ain't happening.
He's just happy to chat shit about any other squad.
Yeah, he's happy to hate watch every other squad.
I'm not even bothering to talk in the chat tonight, by the way, brother. So if you hear from me, it'll be via text message.
If everyone knows our good friend Lockie in the chat, he's a well-known member for us to jump into our DMs and spit out some blasphemy just to get a rise out of people. Whether he believes it or not, I question sometimes too.
I don't think he does. He's an absolute fucking pest. Get this right. Like, I will say something in the chat and it could be like the clearest thing ever. Like, the grass is green. And he'd be like, oh, I don't know. It's pretty brown there. Like, just to fucking wind me up. Like, I'll be like, oh, fuck, of course the Broncos get a penalty. And he'd be like, nah, clear as day a penalty. Just just simple shit. He really got me. I think it was it the Panthers game? Not so much last game. It might have been last. Whatever game it was, but it really got to me. So he's just a serial shit talker.
Yeah, just to pull back the curtain just a tad too, guys. Yeah, it was he's just so good at, like, you know, when the Warriors get their first loss, you get that message straight away. He's right on it, you know, especially as Brody said, you know, with the dogs and that. I wasn't able to jump into the chat, like we have a DM and all that where we talk about footy, and I was out with meeting Levon and stuff at Grubby's over the weekend. So I missed out a little bit of that footy. I was watching it on my phone and all that while driving home, and I could see the chat popping up. And I could see the messages going back and forth, and I was like, "Lockie, you're a grub." So he's a great guy. He's a great cat.
He's a fucking pest.
All right, moving over to the Supercoach portion of the show, guys. If you got any of the questions, Supercoach wise, make sure you chuck them into the chat. We've probably got a good 10 minutes left in us. Not too much to talk about, Supercoach wise. We are ending the State of Origin period, so we'll touch on our trades coming out of that and our view set there. But games over the weekend, both of us, you know, looking at other scores over the weekend, not bad, but not on the top end either. 963 for me, 947 for you, my brother, with some unfortunate things happening.
Yeah, disappointed Pappenhausen and Jack Bird got ruled out late for me. So
yeah.
I didn't even have, you know, I was tipped to have 14. I ended up with fucking 12. So pretty dirty about it, but it is what it is. And I'm just hoping that I can come home strong.
Shout out to you though. 947 with that happening is a great shout. Like if you had someone like that there to even push that up, you could have been up my scores. Who knows? Like, you know, if Ryan Pappenhausen played for both of us, we would have been all goods. But I think everyone kind of had to deal with that too. So shout out to James Tedesco. I thought he was going to have an absolute shocker for us until that last try. That saved us a ton, I thought.
Thank God for that. Turbo saved me on the Sunday in the last game as well.
Yeah, shout out to Turbo. Great game out there. I love the way that the Seagulls are starting to use him again too when they get into attacking field position. They use him back as a fullback there, and he's doing great things there. Shout out to Liam, just skyrocketing at the top of the competition there. I thought I was going to make some sort of inroads against him, but I have not just yet. Sitting at the top there. Again, a big little score from the weekend.
It's hard because look at that. He's got all the same players as us except for 3.
Yeah, and those 3 were a big difference. Scotty Drinkwater, my God, Tommy Trbojevic as well. So shout out to him. Later, Jazz. Good to see ya. But yeah, moving over to my team anyway this week and my trades. So at the moment, looking at these trades, these can change for sure. You know, me and Brody have spoken about Origins is the big swing here. If there's players backing up, there's players not backing up. If we got all players backing up, I don't see myself going as big as what I've gone now in that sort of sense. I'll probably roll back a couple of trades there, and I think you're on the same track too.
I thought you were going to be set regardless, brother.
No,
still not. Yeah.
I'm getting cold feet. I'm still. I think if Cleary and Edwards were to play, I probably would make a one trade look at maybe freeing up cash in that sort of sense, Talon de Silva or something like that.
You don't want to bring in Lomax?
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I don't know. Okay. We'll talk about that more. But Talon de Silva and Zach Lomax are my trade-ins this week. My trade-outs are Sandon Smith and Zach Hosking. Hosking for a week or two play I had there. Didn't get the too big boom upside I was praying for. But 67 is not too bad there. And Sandon Smith with obviously, you know, him getting pushed out to Sammy Walker. That's the reason why I trade him out there. But, you know, Talon de Silva coming in, frees up cash in that hooker role. Me and Brody spoke about this ad nauseum at work. You know, hooker is this position at the moment that's really tough to say, like, you know, especially with the team makeups that we have, the amount of reserves that we have. We're already going to find ourselves in positions where we're going to leave our guns. You know, why carry another big hooker like a Connor Watson when I've got Harry Grant there waiting to go when he comes back from Origin? So that's my thought process there too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I like your move here, because it also frees you up a lot of cash for the 2 moves that you're wanting to make going forward.
Yeah. And Zach Lomax coming in as well. You know, just a great players in the fact of, you know, a guy that averages a ton. You know, if he comes back from Origin fresh is a daisy for the Parramatta Eels, as Parramatta kind of need him to. He has the ability to go well. Panthers this weekend. I'm sure that he'll still have a good attacking output in that sort of area too, because a lot of his game comes from his effort plays. But I'm looking at like Jacob Carraz. I'm looking at a lot of different areas, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see how we go. Oh, I don't want to undo changes either. Jesus.
No, I was like, what are you doing, Ash?
Oh, I'm stressing out, bro. I'm stressing out. There's a lot that's going on here to end off the State of Origin period, but this is the way I'm running out this weekend, guys. Ryan Pappenhausen is in my fullback jersey still. I've seen a lot of people trade him out. I'm keeping him for the week. James Tedesco is my vice captain for the weekend. I'm excited to see what score I can get out of James Tedesco. My captaincy option, I've got Terrell May, and that's more of a safe play of a guy that averages 80 and upwards, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm
going back to that play. I think it's the easiest play at the moment. And as I said before, Harry Grant on the reserve list, whether he plays or not. Obviously, I got Nathan Cleary on a reserve list. We got Cam Munster on a reserve list, and we got Dylan Edwards on a reserve list as well, to where if those guys come in, it changes a lot of the way my team is this weekend there too. But you know, even while talking about it, seeing Zach Lomax there is a very good sign for me as well. So maybe I do just continue with the trade I have now.
I think it's a great move for you, brother, because look at your cash that you got left over. What is it, 450? 334. Yeah, outstanding. Because if you revolve back that trade, you know, depending on who backs up from Origin, you also got to hope that Tino actually does back up. You also got to hope that Val Holmes actually backs up. That could leave you a lot shorter. So I think you're making the right decisions there to free up a lot of cash for you going forward. And you still got 8 trades to work with in 8 weeks of footy or something like that. So, you know, unless you have an injury a week, you should be sweet as.
Yeah, I hope so, bros. I really hope so, because I'm in that real sweet spot. We're both in that sweet spot of being up fairly close to, you know, the top 1,000 in Supercoach at the moment. I am just under 3,000. I'm thinking I'm like 2.9. You are at the 7,000 mark. So, you know, a couple of changes, a couple of big weeks in Supercoach, we can get up to that upper echelon. Another bad week, we do fall behind the pack a tad. And this is a period now where I think it's going to be really chasing the run home.
100%, brother. Just a shout out to Tai. That is a gamble, brother, but I do see it. Definitely the vice captain on Farnsworth. But the Sion Karapani.
It's a big one.
Risky.
Yeah, especially after all the big weeks he's had so far. You know, when we're going off of graphs and stuff like that, like he could go another big one for 100, or he could go down to a 50 and just, you know, then he'll have another uptrend. But
exactly.
Your trade this week, brother. Aaron Clark comes in, Joseph Tarpanick comes out. Your thought process here?
Yeah, I think the Warriors are just going to go back to grinding games here. And, you know, you named a bit younger of a bench, or not younger so much, but a bit more of an experienced bench for the Warriors this week. I don't know if that's because Catewell wasn't named and that might change. But I like Aaron Clark. I think he's going to start to really tick back up in his minutes and hopefully his involvements. And for me, Ricky's just screwing us on Supercoach at the moment for Raiders players, because he's just rotating his guys around a lot and their minutes aren't consistent at all at the moment. So, yeah, I'm going to steer towards Aaron Clark this week, and just to cover me for this week and probably keep him for the run home.
It's a great play. And like, even though so I think the Warriors have a really good run home. I think we've got a very a decent soft draw, even though every team in the competition has their quirks to them and stuff. I think the Warriors got a really good run home. I think that also he's the type of player that seems to be just game proof, right? I think that like when you come against like top teams, he still comes out with some big scores as well, just doing his base work. Like, he's one of our main carriers in the middle with Fish, especially defensively, his run rate as well. I think it's a great shout, especially for the run home. And there's no doubt him getting to 670k, there's a reason why he got there. He's averaging 70 at the moment. He's been a major contributor for the Warriors this season.
Yeah, and I think that just rounds out my forward pack and my back row. I was hoping that Tarpany would just be that set and forget player the rest of the year, but he just hasn't quite been there.
Agreed. I think I'm in the same boat there as well. You know, I want to look to a Payne Harsner. I just want to see how Payne gets through Origin. I want to see how all these players get through Origin before we're going to make the move to them for our run home as well. But James Tedesco is your captain this week. You're just going to go jump on him, but you got Herbie Farnworth as that VC. Great option there, Herbie Farnworth. I've got Herbie at the moment. It's giving me thoughts on maybe if I do want to go down that route as well. But obviously the quick turnarounds, as in the fact of Friday to Saturday game, I'm pretty sure, isn't it? So obviously you'll get into Herbie. If he goes well, the next day, jump on your app, change it over. But your thought process there?
Yeah, it's more so I can save the trade of 5'8", and even if Munster doesn't play. You know, if I'm hoping, my plan here is Farnworth go bang, get 100, get 90. I'll probably take 90 this week. hopefully Munster doesn't back up like I'm tipping him not to, and put captain on Munster and just ride Herbie as the VC loop. Otherwise, I'm looking like I'm going to be potentially trading in Ezra Mann for King Tongia. And I like that move. Ezra's going to score well, but I just don't know if I need that there for the rest of the season with who I've still got to come back into this team after Origin's done.
Yeah, and we are in that, like, may as well touch on that because, your team's pretty much set and forget here. Nathan Cleary, if he plays, he's in. Munster, if he plays, will be in. There's a lot of players as well. You're in the same boat as me here. But jumping over to just the chat in that sort of area too, the thought process of, we are in that phase right now. It's a very weird phase of Supercoach because, in years past, it's taken a long time to get to a point where we're at now, where this year I feel like we got to it very early to where we're putting so many guns into our side. But sometimes that can be a hindrance in a way of we got players sitting out there that are 600K range that you're not even going to be playing week in, week out. So what is the real use of having them just sitting there, that sort of sense? So are you looking at that way of just freeing up cash and moving it around, or are you going to keep that depth play of if there's any injuries, you got a guy waiting there, or you're playing more of a balance in between that?
I think I'm going to keep the depth, to be honest, this year, brother. I don't need to free up any more cash. My cash gen's really good. Yep. I've got 6 to 7 guys that I could happily pick as reserves week in, week out. So I'm covered for an injury and stuff there. And it's just going to create that point of difference, I guess, I can have a look at who other coaches are putting as their reserves this week, and I could go a different route. Or I could be really particular on matchups and say, Keon's got Melbourne this week. I don't think he's going to have as much. I won't reserve him this week and take that gamble. Whereas instead of it just being set, they're my 4 reserves every week. So I could be really picky on the matchups that I want.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's kind of been playing in my mind over this week of Supercoach and probably for a run home is when I was choosing a Zach Lomax, as per se, right? For example, I'm putting him into my CT dub. But my CT dub is really stacked at the moment to where if I get full strength to where all our Origin players are in, I'll play Zach Lomax for sure. He's going to be a reserve named on him. But I may get to an area where I'm I have either a choice of Zach Lomax, Asako and all that. It sounds fuck yeah, it's an amazing choice. You're going to have to choose between one or two. But when you're carrying it week in, week out and you don't have any, let's say a lot of these guys have no buys running home, you're carrying a lot of big cash on your bench that maybe you aren't playing, certain weeks as well. So is there a better way to say cash out players and go hard on a squad that you have, a number that you have, or do you want to carry all those big boys? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, well, I've kind of got everybody that I want, so I don't need to free up cash to get anybody else. You know what I mean? If I needed to get somebody else, it'd just be a straight swap out. The only other one that I might need to free up some cash for is a Hudson Young. But even then, I'll be probably trading out potentially a Tino or, or an Aaron Clark or Joe Tarpany if I wanted to grab a Hudson Young. I don't need to make 2 moves and trade somebody to enough anymore to do that. I've got the cash gen there. I've got players that are high priced. I'm pretty set in that regard. So I'm pretty comfortable to carry that 5 or 6 guys that I have the choice of reserving and leaving a gun unreserved and taking the risk that they're going to have a down week and picking the right one. I know that's risky in a way, but I think if you're not at that point right now as Supercoach, to the point where you've got too much cash gen or too much value players there on the bench, you've probably done something wrong along the line of cash genning. But I think I'm all sweet for the run home, and I'm expecting a big one.
All right, is that going to be the bow in our Supercoach chat for the week?
I think so, brother.
I think so. All right,
and a lot of my changes and potentially my second change of the week will come depending who backs up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's a big key factor in Supercoach this week. Lastly, before we go, a consistent viewer of the show, Jose, shout out to you. Just in the hospital waiting for the newest Warriors fan to be born. Congratulations, my brother, when it does happen. But yeah, amazing. I
love how he still tunes in for all the Supercoach chat, brother. I honor you a lot for that, brother. That's great. And you should name your kid whoever gets the highest score on Supercoach this week.
All right, Herbie is coming to the world this week. That'd be great.
That'd be dope.
Shout out to you, Jose. Always been a massive fan of the show, massive contributor to the show, as in week in, week out, the way you view us and give us questions and some feedback and all that to always jump off with the chat. Helps out a ton, as you guys always do. And shout out to all you guys in the chat right now. 14 concurrent viewers right now, end off the show. At one period there, it bounced all the way up to like a 50 or something like that. It was really, really high. Ended the show at 345 views. It was one of our biggest shows. Second State of Origin week in a row where we've hit our biggest shows. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much. Big congratulations to you, Jose. Anything more you want to touch on before we jet off, bro?
Nah, that is it. Go the Blues.
Up the Maroons, baby. Have a good weekend, guys. Let's go.
Enjoy, guys. See you next week.
You.